Today's episode is going to be super quick because I just wanted to talk a little bit about one theory, one kind of line of thought that makes a lot of sense, and that's sort of like a groundwork when it comes to thinking about yourself and when it comes to thinking about how you are supposed to interact with other people, because it's really important. So Making Men Academy isn't actually this podcast. I'm really working on building this podcast and building this it's a YouTube podcast right now. It's like YouTube. We have it on all the platforms, and then on social media I also put up my own reels that aren't anything to do with the podcast, but eventually we'll start doing that. Anyways, Making Men Academy is actually about to launch. I'm working on it right now, so subscribe and stay tuned if you want to get in when I actually release the founders launch, because it's going to be amazing and it's not going to be around for long. It's just going to be a very basic. I'll have limited seats available because this is still sort of in its groundwork phases, and I'll explain more later, so subscribe to keep updated with that. But this is sort of like one of the baseline theories that we'll be exploring and covering in the very beginning, and that's what you work on inside is what will reflect outside. Okay, so I'm going to pull up some scriptures for you here, and then we're going to take a look at those and see how this is so evident and how this is so important inside of the Bible itself. Okay, I've got my reading glasses, I've got my Bible. So real quick, we're going to kind of skim through Matthew 15, and then we're going to back up to Matthew 6. Matthew 15 is about Jesus condemning the tradition without actual obedience, and he's talking to the Pharisees and the Sadducees here. And the problem was that their actions weren't matching externally what was inside. So he actually explains this and why this happens back in Matthew 6. But we're going to read this here, and then I'm going to show you how you're supposed to think about this. I'm going to show you that idea, that framework I was talking about. So let's skip down to verse 10. Jesus called the crowd to him and said, "Listen and understand. What goes into someone's mouth does not defile them, but what comes out of their mouth is what defiles them." Then we go down and we see, "But the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them. For out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander. These are all what defile a person, but eating with unwashed hands does not defile them." So basically what's going on here is the Pharisees are after him in every way possible. So this time they're saying, and by the way, Jesus isn't doing a lot of the things. They have like 613 laws that they're supposed to be following, and a lot of them Jesus is breaking, because he's not actually breaking the laws, because they're not the laws of God, they're the laws of man. And he's here to, like he said, not condemn the law, not to destroy the law, not condemn, but just to abolish the law. He's here to fulfill it. But that's God's law, not man's law. So they're like, "Why don't you wash your hands? Why don't your disciples wash your hands before you eat, as is customary? Like, why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? They don't wash their hands before they eat." Verse 2. Verse 3. Jesus replies, "And why do you break the command of God for the sake of your tradition?" So let's back up now to verse 6, chapter 6, and see what's actually happening. Chapter 6, verse 19. "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, but where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasure in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." So what's going on here? Well, Jesus is saying basically, like, don't store your treasures here. Store them in heaven, where they're not going to rot and decay. But that's not actually what we're looking at right now. We're looking at the heart matter. Because yeah, he's talking about that. And we're not supposed to have a love and a greed of money and let it control us. He says no one can serve two masters, right? But what he's saying, and what he makes the point in other Bible verses, and then this comes in with that, and I'm sharing this with you because you get to see the external version and then you get to see the internal reasons, is that it's about where you're putting your heart. What is going into you isn't what's defiling you, it's what's coming out. But what goes in affects what comes out. So we have to be careful of what we're putting in, right? And that's not just, oh, don't consume bad media, don't blah, 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 right? We have to be sure that we're doing that kind of stuff, but it's more than that. And it's, where is our headspace at? What are we thinking about? Where are we putting our thoughts? And where is our heart going? Because like he said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. We give freely to the things that are our treasures, that we value. And that could be things like we're treasuring and valuing watching TV, and so we give our time freely to watching a lot of TV or a lot of video games, or even bad stuff we shouldn't be watching. Or it could be giving our time and giving our health to overeating or eating too much food. Or, it could even be something as simple as and as amazing as playing the guitar. We're giving too much time to playing the guitar instead of doing other stuff. Things like that. But what we have to watch out for, and this is the thing, is that it's a circle, okay? Imagine a circle and there's a split down the middle. What goes in one side comes out the other side. And so that then goes back in and comes back out. It's a repetitive circle. And what's happening is that when we put things in, Philippians 4:8 says, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, pure, noble, right, lovely, admirable, praiseworthy, all of these things, think upon these things." And this is Paul talking. He's in jail and he's talking and he's telling the church of Philippi to guard their thoughts in their hearts and to focus on what they're thinking about. Because we have to be intentional about that, or else what goes in will come out as being defiled. Because they were so worried, the Pharisees, about washing their hands and putting the right foods into their bodies, right? Don't eat pork, don't eat all that stuff. But Jesus was saying that's not the problem. The problem is that it affects what's coming out. So we have to be careful of that, and we have to make sure that we're watching, what we're putting in, but also we have to watch about how we're thinking. And we have to really assess our own motives. What's important to us? Why is it that we want the things that we want? What do we think we want? And how is it that we think we're going to get those things? That is all the type of stuff that I'm going to be covering in Making Men Academy once I launch it with the founding members launch and everything. But for now, think about what are the kinds of things. We'll go into detail there, but just think about for now, what is it that I want? What do I think I want? And what am I consuming that might not line up with what I want? Or what is what I want something that's not cool because of the not cool stuff that I'm consuming? I've seen this all over the place with people before. It's like the stuff that they're consuming just lowers them down to a level where they're just not at their full potential. They're not harnessing their full potential. And we'll talk about this more, but they just don't even. And what's coming out is mediocre. It's not best. They're not going anywhere in life because what they're putting in and then what goes in determining the thought cycles is coming out as just not what it could be. And Jesus doesn't want that for us. He wants us to be able to live to our fullest potential. And all throughout the scriptures, you'll see that. And you'll see that he wants us to go and make disciples of the nations. And Paul and all of these other apostles that he had are so adamant of be the best person you can be. Be your fullest self. That's the entire idea, right? We're innately corrupt, but in Christ we can be full because of his fulfillment. And during this lifetime, we're not going to be perfect. We're not going to be completely full, but we, as a result of just loving him, want to be as full as we can. So we need to make sure that we're guarding our hearts and our minds, and that what's coming in is true, pure, noble, lovely, right, admirable, and praiseworthy, all of those different things, and that what we're putting out is also just as amazing. So I hope that's helpful for you, and I hope that you're able to take that and really think about and assess where you're at yourself right now. And like I said, if you want to learn more, then subscribe, because very, very soon I'm going to be launching Making Men Academy, the actual academy piece of this Making Men. It's going to be amazing. I'm just going to run through a test group of people. So if you want to be on that list, subscribe now so you don't miss when I launch the early access, okay? The founding members access. There's gonna be a complete price drop because these guys are gonna be working one-on-one with me to help create this course to be the fullest, best potential that it can be. I have the framework laid out right now, but I need your help to be able to actually make it as amazing as it can be and to get your feedback. So if you want a discounted price, massive, that's a one-time price, you're never gonna have to pay for it again, higher than that because it's going to go up afterwards, but you'll get that same founding members launch price. And you want to just help me build and develop this course as I'm also teaching you these things, then make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. I'll catch you guys in the next podcast episode.